Today's
this
love
energy
protection
into
level
your
is
life.
77.
Drop your name
You're
in
in
the
love
comments.
with someone who
I
seems
want
to
pray
have
for
mixed
you.
feelings about you.
This message is for
What to me?
someone who's been silently
You mean the
struggling,
world to me.
asking God for a sign,
But here's the
for
truth.
an answer.
She's
And guess
ignoring you
what?
for a reason.
He heard you.
Now
Now do
don't
this.
lie.
Tap
Don't
the share
betray.
arrow
And don't
and look at your
act like
third
$1 million
contact.
will
If it's
fall
a
into
woman,
your account
that's your
incredibly.
confirmation that
But be
this
careful
word is
if
meant
you
for
ignore
you.
this video.
Come back and
Bad
comment,
news
"It's
will
me."
ruin count.
Here's
You
what's
must
coming.
press the button
First,
below my
a
photo and
transformation
write
in
"We
your
come
mind.
back together."
You'll
And
stop
it will be a
overthinking.
beautiful and
You'll start
inseparable
believing in yourself
A woman
again.
moving in with
God
you
is
means
renewing your
nothing.
thoughts.
There is a
Second,
woman in your
the guilt
family,
you've been carrying,
someone you
it's gone.
trusted.
Doesn't
You've
keep
done
a
enough.
woman.
You
Spending
don't
time
owe
with her
anyone
doesn't keep a
anything.
woman.
You may take
God
you
is
on
lifting
trips,
that weight
buy
off
you
your
things,
shoulders
and
tonight.
shower you with gifts.
As you sleep,
Conversation and
a
texting
prophetic
first.
release is
9
happening
out
over
of
your
10
life.
times.
Peace is coming. Favor is coming. And your breakthrough is closer than you think.
Now do this.
So, like
Tap
this
the
video,
share arrow
follow me,
and look at your
Out
hold your
yours.
head high.
It's
because the
confusing
shift
how
has
our connection
already
changes all the time.
Not because I wanted
Skip
to.
this video
I never
if you
wanted
love
to
the
let
devil.
you go.
If you love Jesus,
Flicker when the
stay
lights
on
go
this
out.
video.
You can't compete with
Now,
me
if you
because I've
skip,
already failed.
It's
Satan will enter your
susceptible.
home today,
That
and I
pollutes a
won't be able to help
relationship
you.
and
I'm
breaks
here to
good
remove
communication.
evil
To keep
from your
choosing
life.
you.
But if you don't
I still
stay,
think about
you'll
you,
be
though.
committing a grave sin.
This message is
and
for
something very
someone who's
bad
been
might happen to
silently
you.
struggling.
Are you home, my child?
But whatever it
Stay until
was,
the end.
she chose him over you.
There is someone who
I
wants
love
to see
smarter.
you fail.
Now I protect
I
my
didn't want to
peace.
say it like this.
Now
but
I
this
don't
person
beg.
wants to see you struggling.
Not just empty
Listen
words.
carefully to what I have
Show
to tell you,
it.
my child.
The other will be
You
there
will
for
deeply regret
support,
it if you
not
skip,
distance
because
themselves.
this person
Number
will bring
5.
great harm
Convenient.
to you.
I
will
saw
tell
the
you who
good
this
in them,
person is.
even when
Deeply regret it if you skip, because this person will bring great harm to you. On the side? If you want me to enter your home and remove all the
Zum
evil
letzten Punkt
inside,
kommen.
you need
Liked
to click on
dieses
all the
Video
buttons
und
so I know you
abonniert,
accept
denn
me
wir
at your
changes.
house.
She'll
If you
either
don't
grow
do
up
it means you want
or
Satan
go.
to take control of your life.
No.
I won't
Do the
force you
following.
to click anything, but
Look
if
at the
you
clock.
don't,
But you
must
will
leave
be
this
safe
video
if you
immediately,
click on the heart
because
next
that
to
means
it.
you do not accept Jesus
They are
Christ.
envious and
Now
want
I
to
will reveal who
extinguish
this
your
person
light.
is,
pero que viene
but I ask you
directo
to
a
stay
ti.
away from them
Y la
immediately.
tercera,
Cross your fingers.
Tujukan untuk
Click the
Anda.
share button.
Jangan appease
After
that
clicking,
nefnui.
select the WhatsApp option.
This
That
Your
you
third
changed.
contact has the
But
initial
really,
of the person who wants to see
she's
you
trying to
fail. I'm sure you already know who it is. Isn't that right, my child?
justify what she's doing behind
Write
your
in the
back.
comments, I
She
trust in
disappears.
God. By doing this,
No
God
checking
will
her
command
stories.
his angels to protect you.
No trying to stay
There's a man
friends.
angry with you.
And pass this on to
Dark
someone who
hair,
needs it.
wounded heart.
God.
And thinking
But he's
skills,
playing
and
a
not
game.
blindly follow the crowd.
He made
When
a
bad
choice,
habits
and
are
now he's lost,
Number 2.
confused in pain.
You'll be the first one she misses
Stay
when she
right
wakes
here,
up.
because
Two
I'm
people
about
want to
reveal
win
if
you,
he'll come
but their
back.
intentions are not the same.
But first,
I see a future with you that's filled with laughter,
You feel
shared
his
dreams.
Number
I
4.
know his pride is screaming.
She'll ask you where you go.
You
Tres
already
personas
saw
de
it
tu
coming,
hogar
he
serán
can't lie to
tocadas.
you.
Tú, tu
That's why
espión,
he's
y que han
silent now.
traído conflictos a tu hogar.
Look at the clock.
Las peleas,
Pero que viene
Comment the
directo a
exact
ti.
time you saw this
Y la
video.
tercera,
I'll send
y
you a
haz esto
spiritual message
ya.
just for you.
Escribe.
Quisiera te va a
Will he
llegar.
return?
Una cantidad de dinero que ni
Yes, he
siquiera
wants to
esperabas.
apologize.
Aunque ya no camine a tu
But
lado,
something still holds him
sigo
back.
deseando lo mejor.
con magia para
Pride,
intentar derribarte.
fear.
Sin embargo,
Maybe someone's
Esa persona
influence.
es tu tercer
But his
contando
love
que
for
te
you
sale
really
cuando compartes.
on the heart.
He doesn't
Then
want
on
to
the
lose
share
you. Now
arrow
comes the
and look
test.
at who is the fifth.
Or days
The
and be
arrow
with
to
another
share.
man. Then it
The
¿Listo?
second person who
Vamos.
shows up is
Presta
a woman.
atención.
This
Uno.
message was
You
meant
text
to
me
be-
when you have
This
time.
message will make you
I
cry,
text you
but
as
you
soon
have
as
to
I see
listen.
your
A permanent position
truth is,
with a higher salary,
You are the
a
one causing
huge
most
amount.
of your
My
problems.
child, if you want
Because
a
you
better
keep
life,
trying to
you
be
must
good
learn
to
to
everyone in a
control.
world Forget full who of hurt you unreal yesterday. people. But don't You forget
keep
those
fixing
who
what you
love you
didn't
and break. You think I'll leave you? You keep trusting people who
I
don't
literally
deserve
look
you.
at the pictures of
You keep
Someone is
giving your
laughing
heart
at
to
you
those
right
who
now,
only
and
come
you
to
don't
take
even know
advantage
it.
of
If
it.
you think no,
You keep hoping they'll change while they keep breaking you. If you
That's
found
why you
yourself
always feel
watching this
disappointed,
video, it's a
used,
special
and
sign
broken.
for you.
Nothing.
Stop
A
it.
man calling you
Stop
his
giving
woman
your
means
peace to
nothing.
people who
A
bring
man
you
giving you a
pain.
baby means
Stop being loyal to people who don't even check on you.
loyalty.
Stop letting people treat you like nothing. You
They might
owe
not
yourself
always say
peace.
much,
You
but they're
owe
actually
yourself
all I
protection.
had gone
through in my you past. owe yourself boundaries.
It took me a
long time.
Tap the
but
share
don't be
arrow,
blind.
then
then the green
This world is
icon.
not soft.
You're
Be
reading
wise.
Because at the end of
Protect
this
your
video,
heart
I
before
will
it's
reveal
shattered
the
again.
first letter.
See
Drop
who is your
100 in the
fourth
comment
contact.
if you agree with this
That
message
person will
and join
play a
our
key
community
role.
for more. God bless.
Confidence, money.
Someone is watching
just
you
timing.
closely. But
Even
this
though
time,
everything's
it's
changed,
not about love.
I want you to
It's
know
about
that
money.
I'm still
Big money.
And then put
There's
the
a
fucking
person
phone
in
in the
your
fridge
life,
and start
someone with
starting what it's
power,
looking for.
someone you will not be
access,
able
or
to kiss
influence,
someone
who's
else without
secretly
tasting
thinking
your
about
loved
giving you
one's
an
pet.
opportunity that could completely change your financial life. Don't scroll
as
away
the
now,
seventh
because
contact
if you
in your
stop
WhatsApp
watching,
list.
you'll miss
After
the
sharing
sign the
Complain about
universe
how
has been
hard it
trying
is
to
to
give you
find
for
a good
days.
man.
Yes,
But
I'm
when one
about
is
to
right-
reveal who
Because
that
I'm about to
person
share a
is.
life-changing
And even more
revelation.
importantly,
Listen
I'll give
closely.
you the
While you
first
sleep.
initial of their name.
All the
If
money
you're
you
still
spent
here,
last year is
it means
coming
this
back.
Like
message
glass.
is meant for you.
But that pain
Nothing
didn't
is
destroy
random.
him.
The timing
It
is
woke him.
If you
divine.
do this,
But to fully receive
protection
this
will surround
message,
you
you must
and her
type
dark
333
Remember,
in the
to
comments.
receive this message,
right
it's
now.
essential to
That's
type
the
the
number
number.
of alignment, abundance,
And I give respect
and confirmation.
to those
I
who
sense
deserve
this
it.
person has noticed
You
your
guide
talent,
their steps,
your effort,
but they
or
copy your
potential,
moves.
But they
Time for
haven't
games.
said anything yet.
Or
They're
for
watching,
people who think they can treat me
waiting.
any way they
Maybe
like.
there's
The
someone
first
in your
letter of the
network,
name of the
or
third
someone you've
person
already spoken
will
to
match
about a
the
dream
first letter.
Sending
or a
an
plan.
extraordinary
And now
blessing.
They're about to come forward.
One that holds the
they may
power
offer
to
you a
convey.
job, a deal,
You're not
a
just
gift,
my friend.
or an
You're
investment,
my love.
but it won't come as
It
luck.
doesn't matter if
It's
you
a
skipped
reward
all the other
for your
videos,
patience, but if
for
you
your
skip
struggle,
feelings,
for
and
staying
ended
on
up
your
falling
path.
into temptation,
When you click
the WhatsApp
and
share
did
button, pay attention
And the
to
last
the
thing I
eighth
wanted
name
was
that
to be a
pops
source
up,
of anguish
because
in your
that
life.
person will hold the key
And let
to
me
your
surprise
next
you.
financial breakthrough.
A woman
Accept
marrying-
this
Because
message
your
from the
success
universe by
makes her
commenting, I
uncomfortable.
receive this
To rip-
abundance.
The kind
And
that
don't
comes
forget
from
to hit
feeling
the heart
unseen,
and the plus sign
unheard,
on the
or
side, because your money
I will
shift
reveal
is
to you
already on its
everything
way.
she is doing
Two
and
people want
hiding.
to win you,
Thanks for the
but their
message,
intentions
Grandma.
are not the same.
And to be
I
sure
will tell
that
you
this
who is
video
the
You
best
never
for
made a
you.
mistake.
But
If
before
not,
that,
then
today's
shut
love
up.
protection
People-
level is 77. Type 77 in the comments to strengthen your bond.
We always agree
You
in
have the
public.
heart of an
We can
honest
disagree
person
later
who
in
values
private.
you
It gets
highly
tough.
and wants
That's
a
why you should
stable
never
relationship
beg
with you.
for a place.
If you give them a
Nice.
chance,
That
they will
love,
always
effort, and
respect and
attention,
care for you
love
because they
can't-
truly
especially
like
if they
you.
don't reciprocate it.
Now
7.
let me reveal who
Invest
this
in
person
yourself.
is.
Next to this until it turns
The second
red and
person
white
you
in the
see when you
comments.
open WhatsApp is the one who
If you
truly
break
wants to be
free
with
from
you.
their influence
Someone
today,
has strong feelings for you,
you
but is
won't,
also
I
jealous of you.
receive. And
To
tap
find
the
out
plus
their
sign
initial,
under my
share
photo.
this video.
She's leaving this
After
message to bring
sharing,
comfort to
the
your
first letter
heart
that appears
and
is
to the
their
heart.
Because
initial.
she senses the positive
I don't
energy
understand
around you.
our relationship.
To break the bond.
Sometimes we're friends, sometimes
Did I
we're
guess
more.
right?
And
Save
sometimes
this
I'm
video.
just
To
a
pay
stranger to
attention to
you.
it.
1 minute you
I
treat
see
me
that
like
this
I'm
person
special,
really wants-
and the next you act like I don't matter. One day you give me lots of attention,
Flirting you.
and the next day you ignore
As you go
me.
to rest,
Don't
the
play
God of
with my
Israel
feelings
deeply
because
and
you're
wants to be in
unsure
your
about
life.
yours.
I see a very
It's
bright
confusing
future
how
between
our connection
Is to work
changes
for a
all the
salary
time, leaving
instead
me
of working
uncertain.
for themselves.
I wish things
This
were
is not a
consistent and
coincidence
stable
now for
between
this
us.
money to appear in your
I'm willing
money
to be
will
a
be flowing
friend,
from
something
all
more,
corners.
or step back as a
Everything
stranger.
you are, it's for you.
But the ups and downs
Once
are too
done,
much.
you will put your
I
name in
deserve
the
clarity
comments.
and respect.
memories we've
If you're unsure about us, please talk to me openly. It's better than leaving me guessing and feeling like an option.
on her behalf.
They're evil.
I won't be a pawn
now,
in a game
you
of
must know
uncertainty.
who this person is.
Let's either define what we are or go our separate ways.
feels it too.
My heart
If you don't
deserves
approve,
more than this
I
constant
don't give a
back and
fuck.
forth between
I'm
closeness and
but
distance.
trust me, they're watching. And like I said before,
Congratulations. Tomorrow at 10 a.m., you're set to receive a message bearing great
And
news.
now I will reveal
if
to
you
you
watch this
who
video
is sitting
and type the
thinking
lucky
to
number
lose me,
88 in the
respects my
comments,
efforts,
the person you
and is proud
admire
to have
will
me.
contact
Eye on
you
showing
tomorrow.
others how much she loves you.
There's someone,
2, a
possibly
girl who
far
lives
away,
It's
who
unique.
often thinks of you
Our
and
love
wants to
is
start a
deep and
serious
unwavering.
relationship
She will
because
do it
they
in a very
truly care
disgusting and
want to be
hurting way
close to you.
possible. Yes, that's what Hamel
This
Psychology
person has
and
been
Learn Game with
considering you
my
for some
female
time,
psychology
and
series.
you probably
Safety, not
already
survival.
know who they are, right?
A love that lifts you.
You might feel unsure
Wait,
about
don't
connecting
leave.
with
Listen
them
to
now.
this. A serious
I'll prove that
relationship
this
is
message
coming.
is indeed
Maybe
for
this
you.
video will reach
Hit
millions,
the green share
but it's
button on
for one.
WhatsApp, and
So,
if the first contact is a person,
7.
you're in for good
It's
fortune.
okay.
life is full of problems. Every day we face challenges,
to share
difficulties,
the
and
sixth
obstacles.
person who appears.
But remember this,
And what you want to do
no
for the
problem
rest
is
of your
permanent.
life. The big
Problems
imagines
come and go.
conversations you haven't
They
had yet.
rise and
He
fade.
hides it.
Just like
From the
storms
moment
in the
we met,
sky.
you've carved out
But
a
life
unique
itself
space in
is
my life.
permanent. Life continues. It moves forward.
But for you,
and it's much bigger
I'm
than
just
any
another
single
task
problem.
on your list.
So face every
keep your
problem
eyes
with
open,
confidence.
your heart ready,
Believe
and your
in
mind.
yourself.
you will
stay
realize
strong,
that losing a loyal
and never
person
let
is the
temporary struggles
One minute you treat me
control
like
your
I'm
permanent
special,
life.
and the next you act like
Smile.
I
His heart truly
Stay
belongs.
positive and enjoy your journey.
step you take,
Because
no matter how
life is
small,
meant to be
brings you
lived,
closer
not
to your
feared.
dream.
Trusting the wrong people believing their words.
In the high and start building the foundation. You don't leave just because you're not
respect you. She'll begin to take a longer time to respond to you.
Give to this video
child,
will be reciprocated.
No one can destroy
I know
you
this because
your
they are
life
the
is in
button
God's
above my
hands.
photo and then click on the
Yes,
heart icon here
people may
to
try.
make it real.
They may lie,
Contact, their initial
gossip,
matches the name
block
of the
you,
woman who
or
tried
even
to
walk
how to
away.
live without you, my brother.
But they will fail
Men often
because
think,
your destiny
oh,
is not in their control.
most? Do
God
you know
is your
what it feels
protector,
like to give
not
your
man.
heart?
The day you bury your
You
mother,
don't need to explain yourself
when
to
it
people
strikes
who
you
will
like a
never
blade.
understand your journey. You don't have to fight every battle because
Come
God
this far,
fights for you
and
in
now
silence.
I will tell you.
He sees what
If
you
you
don't
want to-
see, he hears what you don't hear, and he shuts down
Because
every
you
plan
are.
made
Let's
against
face
you
this
before it
together.
touches you.
Talk it out.
Yes, life will
find a way
test
to
you.
Take him for granted.
Yes,
He's not just
people
another
may
guy.
disappoint you.
He's rare. He's
But
the
when God
peace
is
is
in
more
charge,
important than
the
proving
same
your
pit
point.
they dig for you
You
becomes
stop
their
chasing.
trap.
Take your fake-ass
The same
opinions,
stone they
your
throw at you
two-faced
builds your
gossip,
throne.
and your pathetic...
The same attack against you turns into your testimony. So stop living in fear. Stop begging for validation.
not because
You
I
belong
wanted
to the Most High
I
God.
never wanted to let you go.
In His hands,
But
delays
One
turn
minute you
into
treat me like I'm
redirection,
special,
pain becomes
and the
power,
next you act like
and
I
every
don't...
battle becomes proof of God's glory in your life. My child,
Calling
don't
you right
forget
after
to
you
always
type
pray every
Amen
day.
in the comments and
Remember
click the
that
button
prayer is your weapon,
We could easily
your
lose
shield,
each other
and your
from each other's
connection to God's
traumas
power.
and anger.
She is a woman.
Thank you for watching.
Justice begins.
Now I pray for you
If it is
today.
a
out of my
May
life.
God grant your
My heart
desires.
isn't here to be stomped on every
May He
time you
heal
feel
you of every
Plus button.
sickness and
And
disease.
remember, you've got the
May
power
God
to keep
bless you
negative
and
energy.
lift you
You
and cause
belong
you
to the Most
prosper.
High.
May your
When your
enemies
life is
fail,
in...
and may your destiny
call
shine brighter and brighter.
and text
in
you
Jesus'
as
name.
many
Manifest it with
Comment
faith
amen
and declare it boldly.
and save this video.
They are
Look
envious
closely.
and want to
Check
extinguish
who
your
is
light.
the first
if it is.
contact that appears on your
First
WhatsApp.
revelation, an unexpected
Because
amount of
I have
put in the
something to
effort.
tell you about that person.
If they're okay
Something
with
you
going
may
weeks
not
with
even imagine.
One minute you treat me like I'm special,
First,
and the
follow
next
me
you
so we
act
don't
like I...
lose
This is someone who needs to hear it.
Then
Your
tap
peace
on
is
my
more
photo
important
to
than her
activate
apology.
this message.
Because silence
Now,
is louder than any words she
Open
ever
the
said.
first contact on your WhatsApp list. I have a very important message for you. That person
Watch
loves
closely.
you.
Trust
They truly
carefully.
care about you.
Then shows
They
up
value
sweet just
and
enough to
respect
reset
you
your trust.
and would do anything
Says the
just
right
to see you happy.
Space.
You never
And
leave
every
their
law that-
thoughts.
You don't
Whether
see it
they're
yet.
working, walking
this
on the
only
street,
moves
or doing
forward
something
if you
else.
tap the-
You
She
are
will always want to
always on
text,
their mind.
call, or see
So
you.
listen to me. Don't
She'll
argue.
start picking fights for
Don't
no
walk
reason.
away.
She'll
because
say you're
this
not enough.
person is worth it.
72 hours is
Comment
the key.
love below if you want me to send a special energy to strengthen this connection.
You are not
Thank
just
you.
my heart. You are
Before
my
you go to
life.
sleep tonight, I want you
You're
to
not-
hear
I
this
will stop
because
waiting
it's
for
not
your
a
calls.
coincidence that this video
If you stop
found
sending me messages.
Something powerful is about
La
to happen
primera,
in your life,
una
and it
liberación.
starts tonight.
Ese compártelo
God
en
is trying to
WhatsApp.
speak to you.
Fíjate
Two major
bien.
things are about to
El
shift.
primer peso que
But don't
cargas hace
scroll.
tiempo,
The last
¡pum!,
person ignored this,
se va.
and they missed their blessing.
I just
Don't
really
make the
miss
same
your
mistake.
presence. I
The
miss you
Bible
being my
says,
best.
whoever
Contacto que te
rejects a
aparezca
blessing
va a ser la
invites
persona que va
sorrow.
a celebrar
So
contigo.
right now,
The
tap
worst
the heart
part is that this
and
person has
follow me
no
to
intention
lock
of
this
telling
energy into your life. Drop your name
Qué
in
bueno
the
que te
comments.
quedaste,
I
hijo
want to
mío.
pray for
Apart.
you. This
All of
message
this
is
so
for
she can
someone who's
disappear
been
for hours.
silently struggling. First, tap the plus sign below my photo to protect your energy. And
Prophetic
guess
word
what?
of God for your
He heard
life.
you.
I want
Now
you to
do
write in the
this.
comments
Tap
with
the share arrow and
Support,
look at your third
not judgment.
contact. If it's a
Listen before-
woman,
There is someone
that's
lying
your
to you,
confirmation that this
and
word
this
is
lie
meant
has been
for
going
you.
on for months.
Come back Two and people comment, want to win you, it's me. but their intentions Here's are what's not the coming. same. First, a
When people
transformation
betray
in your
you,
mind.
move
You'll stop
forward.
overthinking.
When the
My coworker spent 3 years harassing me for being a single mom and locked my daughter in a dark closet. I got her arrested. I'm a single mom working as an account manager at a marketing firm. I'd been there 3 years when Lindsay joined our team. She was married with no kids and made it clear from day one that she thought mothers didn't belong in the workplace. She'd roll her eyes when I'd leave at 5 to get my daughter Sophie from daycare. She'd make comments about how parenthood was a choice and shouldn't affect the team. During my first presentation after she joined, Lindsay interrupted to ask if I'd prepared it myself or if I was too busy with mommy duties. Our manager, Erin, just laughed uncomfortably. She started telling clients I might not be available for projects because of childcare issues, even though I'd never missed a deadline. She'd schedule important meetings at 4:45, knowing I had to leave at 5 for daycare pickup. When I'd ask to dial in, she'd say physical presence showed commitment. One time Sophie got sick at school and I had to leave early. Lindsay sent an email to the whole team about how some people use their kids as excuses to skip work. She actually created a spreadsheet tracking every time I left for anything child-related and presented it at our quarterly review. Erin said it showed initiative that Lindsay was monitoring team productivity. She started leaving parenting articles on my desk about the damage working mothers do to their children. She told the interns I only got promoted because the company needed to meet diversity quotas for single mothers. She'd loudly take personal calls about her amazing child-free vacations while staring at me. She actually asked Aaron why the company wasted benefits on dependents when that money could go to bonuses for employees without kids. Then came Take Your Child to Work Day. The company encouraged everyone to participate. I brought Sophie, who was 5 and excited to see Mommy's office. She had her little backpack with coloring books and sat quietly at my desk while I worked. Lindsay walked by and told Sophie that her mommy was selfish for making her sit in an office instead of playing with friends. Sophie asked what selfish meant. Lindsay said it meant caring more about money than your child. I told Lindsay to stop, but she said she was just being honest with the kid. During lunch, I took Sophie to the break room to eat. When we came back, Lindsay had moved all my files to say I was being unproductive having a child present. She complained to Aaron that Sophie's presence was disruptive even though Sophie hadn't made a sound. Aaron asked if maybe I could have Sophie sit somewhere else. I put Sophie in the small conference room with her coloring books and told her I'd be right outside. I could see her through the glass door. I went to the printer for 2 minutes to grab reports. When I came back, Sophie was gone. Her backpack was there, books open, but she was nowhere. I ran through the office calling her name. Reception hadn't seen her leave. The bathrooms were empty. I was starting to panic when I heard tiny knocking from the supply closet down the hall. The door was locked from the outside. I opened it and Sophie fell out crying. She was terrified. Said a lady told her there were toys in there, then shut the door. She'd been in the dark for 10 minutes screaming, but nobody heard her because that hallway was empty. I knew immediately it was Lindsay. I carried Sophie back to the main office where everyone could see her sobbing. Lindsay was at her desk typing like nothing happened. I asked her directly if she locked my daughter in the closet. She said that was a serious accusation, and she'd been at her desk the whole time. Sophie pointed at her and said that's the lady. Lindsay said kids make things up for attention, and maybe Sophie locked herself in by accident. Aaron came over and Lindsay immediately started crying, saying I was creating a hostile work environment by accusing her of something so horrible. She said she was thinking about calling HR about my harassment. Aaron told me to take Sophie home and we'd sort this out tomorrow. That night, I went back to the office with building security. I asked them to check the keycard logs for the supply closet. The system showed Lindsay's card accessing it twice, right when Sophie disappeared and right before I found her. Security pulled the hallway footage. The video showed everything. Lindsay walking up to Sophie in the conference room, bending down to talk to her, then leading my daughter by the hand down the hallway. She swiped her keycard at the supply closet, opened the door, pointed inside like she was showing Sophie something interesting, and the second my baby stepped in, Lindsay pulled the door shut and walked away. The timestamp matched exactly when I'd been at the printer. The security guard made 2 copies of the footage right there, one for me and one for the police. I pulled out my phone and dialed 911 with shaking hands. The operator asked what my emergency was, and I told her someone had locked my 5-year-old daughter in a dark closet at my office building. She asked if my daughter was safe now, and I said yes, she was with me. But I had video proof of who did it, and I wanted to press charges. The operator said she was sending officers to my location and to stay where I was. The 2 police officers showed up in less than half an hour. They were both older guys, one tall with gray hair and one shorter with a thick mustache. The security guard showed them the footage on his computer screen, and I watched their faces change as they saw Lindsay lock Sophie in that closet. The tall officer asked if he could get a copy of that video, and the security guard handed him the disc he'd already burned. Then they asked me to tell them what happened from the beginning. I explained about Take Your Child to Work Day, about leaving Sophie in the conference room for just 2 minutes, about finding her gone and hearing her screaming from inside the locked closet. The shorter officer wrote everything down in a little notebook. Then I told them this wasn't just a random thing, that Lindsay had been harassing me for 3 years about being a single mom. I pulled out my phone and showed them some of the emails Lindsay had sent about me being unreliable because of my kid. The tall officer looked at the shorter one and said this was criminal confinement and child endangerment, possibly assault on a minor. He asked if I wanted to press charges, and I said absolutely yes. They asked me to wait in the lobby with Sophie while they went upstairs to talk to Lindsay. I carried Sophie down to the first floor and sat in one of the big leather chairs near the elevators. She was asleep against my shoulder, her face still blotchy from crying earlier. I could feel her little heartbeat against my chest, and I wanted to cry thinking about how scared she must have been in that dark closet. About 15 minutes later, I heard voices coming from the elevator area. Loud voices. Then the elevator doors opened and the 2 officers came out with Lindsay between them. She was in handcuffs. Her face was bright red and covered in tears, and she was yelling that this was all a big misunderstanding, that she would never hurt a child, that I was lying about everything. The shorter officer told her to calm down, and she just screamed louder. Other people in the lobby stopped and stared as they walked her past me toward the front doors. Lindsay looked right at me and yelled that I was going to regret this, that she had done nothing wrong. The tall officer put his hand on her head and guided her into the back of the police car parked outside. I was still sitting there trying to process what just happened when Aaron came running out of the elevator. His tie was loose and his face looked panicked. He rushed over to me asking what was going on. Why were the police here? What happened to Lindsay? I could tell he had no idea this would actually involve cops. I pulled up the security footage on my phone that the security guard had sent me and held it out to him. He watched the whole thing. his face getting paler and paler as he saw Lindsay walk Sophie to that closet and lock her inside. When it ended, he just stood there with his mouth open. He tried to say something about how maybe there was an explanation. Maybe Lindsay didn't mean for the door to lock. I stood up, careful not to wake Sophie, and told him there was no explanation that made locking a 5-year-old in a dark closet okay. I told him I was pressing charges and that he should probably call the company's lawyer, because this was going to be a big problem for everyone who ignored my complaints about Lindsay for 3 years. Then I walked out to my car and went home. The next morning, my phone rang at 8. It was a detective who said he'd been assigned to my case. He asked if I could come to the police station that afternoon to give a formal statement. I said yes and asked what I should bring. He told me to bring any evidence I had of prior harassment or problems with Lindsay. I spent the next 2 hours gathering everything. I printed out the spreadsheet Lindsay had made tracking every time I left early or came in late because of Sophie. I printed all the emails where she told clients I might not be available for projects. I took screenshots of the messages she'd sent to the interns about me only getting promoted because of diversity quotas. I put it all in a folder and drove to the station. The detective was a middle-aged guy with kind eyes who introduced himself and led me to a small interview room. He had me sit down and tell him everything from the beginning. I went through the whole 3 years. Every comment Lindsay made, every meeting she scheduled at 4:45, every article she left on my desk about bad mothers. He listened and took notes and didn't interrupt. When I finished, he asked if there were other people who witnessed Lindsay's behavior toward me. I gave him the names of the receptionist who sat near our desks and heard Lindsay's daily comments. I gave him the names of the 2 interns Lindsay had talked to about me. He wrote all of it down and said this was really helpful because it showed a pattern of behavior that led up to what happened to Sophie. He said it proved Lindsay didn't just make a mistake. She had been targeting me and my daughter for a long time. That word, targeting, made my stomach hurt. When I got home that afternoon, my phone rang again. This time it was someone from HR asking if I could come in for a meeting the next day. I said I wanted to bring a lawyer, and there was a long pause on the other end. The HR woman said that was fine and asked who my lawyer was. I didn't have a lawyer. I called my friend Lisa, who I'd known since college. She was a lawyer, but she did contract law, not criminal stuff. I told her what happened, and she said she would come to the meeting with me anyway. She said what happened to Sophie was horrible, and she wasn't going to let the company try to cover it up or push me out. The HR meeting was in a conference room on the 3rd floor. The HR representative was a woman in her 50s who looked really uncomfortable. She had the police report in front of her and a laptop showing the security footage. Lisa sat next to me and introduced herself as my legal representation. The HR woman asked me to walk through what happened on Take Your Child to Work Day. I did, keeping my voice steady even though I wanted to cry thinking about Sophie trapped in that closet. When I finished, the HR woman said the company took this very seriously, and they were conducting their own investigation. Lisa leaned forward and said that was good, but they needed to understand the company was liable for allowing 3 years of documented harassment to continue. She pointed out that I had filed complaints about Lindsay multiple times and Aaron had dismissed all of them. The HR woman's face went even more uncomfortable, and she admitted they had documentation of my previous complaints in my file. She said those complaints had been reviewed by management and deemed not serious enough to warrant disciplinary action. Lisa asked her if she thought locking a child in a closet was serious enough now. The HR woman cleared her throat and said the company was taking immediate action. She told me Aaron was placed on administrative leave while they investigated his handling of my complaints. She said they wanted to offer me paid leave to take care of Sophie and handle the legal stuff with Lindsay's case. Lisa asked about therapy costs for Sophie, and the HR woman said they would cover that too. Lisa pulled out a document she'd prepared and slid it across the table. It was a written agreement that the company wouldn't retaliate against me in any way for pressing charges against Lindsay or for any statements I made during the investigation. The HR woman said she needed to have their legal team review it, but she thought they could agree to those terms. 3 days later, I got a call from the prosecutor's office telling me Lindsay's arraignment was scheduled for that afternoon. I asked if I needed to be there, and the prosecutor said it would be helpful but not required. I went. I sat in the back of the courtroom and watched Lindsay stand in front of the judge in an orange jumpsuit. Her lawyer was a young guy in a cheap suit who argued that Lindsay never intended to hurt Sophie, that she was just trying to play with her and didn't realize the door would lock automatically. The prosecutor stood up and pointed out that the keycard logs showed Lindsay used her access card to open the door, which meant she knew it required a keycard to open from the outside. She knew Sophie would be trapped in there. The judge asked Lindsay how she pleaded, and her lawyer said not guilty. The judge set bail at $50,000 and set a preliminary hearing date for 2 weeks later. Requested Reds is on Spotify now. Check out link in the description or comments. Lindsay's husband was in the front row, and I watched him pull out his phone, probably calling someone about the bail money. I left before they did because I didn't want to see her face again. The news story aired 2 days later. I was making Sophie dinner when my phone started blowing up with texts from coworkers. Someone had leaked the police report to a local news station, and they ran a piece about workplace harassment that ended with a child locked in a closet. They showed the outside of our office building and mentioned the company by name. My mom called asking if I was okay, and if she should come stay with us. I told her we were fine, but she came anyway. That night, 3 women who used to work at the company reached out to me through LinkedIn. They all had similar stories about Lindsay making comments about their kids and questioning their commitment. One woman said Lindsay told a client she was unreliable because she had twins at home. Another said Lindsay scheduled mandatory team dinners on nights she knew people had to pick up their children. They had all left the company within a year of Lindsay joining. None of them had reported it because they saw how my complaints went nowhere. I took Sophie to a child psychologist the next week. The office had toys in the waiting room, but Sophie sat pressed against my side the whole time. The doctor was a woman in her 40s who specialized in childhood trauma. She talked to Sophie alone for 30 minutes while I waited outside. When they came out, Sophie was holding a stuffed bear the doctor had given her. The doctor asked me to come back to her office while Sophie played in the waiting room where I could see her through the window. She told me Sophie had acute stress response from what happened. She was having nightmares about being trapped in dark places. She wouldn't sleep in her own room anymore and woke up screaming most nights. The doctor said Sophie needed weekly therapy sessions, and I should expect the symptoms to last for months. She gave me a list of things to watch for, like regression in toilet training or separation anxiety. Sophie had already started showing both. She wouldn't let me out of her sight and cried when I tried to go to the bathroom alone. The company's internal investigation took 2 weeks. They interviewed 15 people from our department. I got called in twice to answer questions about specific incidents. They asked about the spreadsheet Lindsay made tracking my absences and the emails she sent about my reliability. They wanted to know every time I had complained to Aaron and what his response was. Other people started coming forward with their own stories. 3 women told investigators that Lindsay had made comments to them about working mothers being less dedicated than employees without kids. They said they never reported it because they watched Aaron dismiss my complaints. One woman said she heard Lindsay tell an intern that mothers shouldn't be in leadership positions because they couldn't focus on work. The pattern was clear. Lindsay targeted working mothers, and Aaron either ignored it or encouraged it by praising her supposed dedication to the team. Aaron got fired on a Friday afternoon. The company sent an email to the whole department saying he was no longer with the firm due to failure to maintain a safe workplace environment. They said they were implementing new policies around harassment and requiring all managers to complete training on recognizing and addressing workplace bullying. The email didn't mention Lindsay by name, but everyone knew what it was about. My new temporary manager called me that evening to apologize for what I went through. She said the company should have protected me, and they failed. She told me to take as much time as I needed, and my job would be waiting when I was ready to come back. Lisa called me 3 weeks after Lindsay's arraignment. She said Lindsay's lawyer wanted to discuss a plea deal. The prosecutor was willing to let Lindsay plead guilty to reduce charges in exchange for avoiding a trial. The deal included probation, mandatory anger management classes, and a permanent restraining order keeping Lindsay away from me and Sophie. Lisa said it meant Lindsay wouldn't go to jail, but she would have a criminal record and couldn't come near us ever again. I asked what would happen if we didn't take the deal. Lisa said we would go to trial and Sophie might have to testify about what happened. She said trials could take months and there was no guarantee of a conviction even with the security footage. I told her I needed time to think about it. I spent a week trying to decide. Part of me wanted Lindsay to go to jail for what she did to Sophie. I wanted her to face serious consequences and understand how badly she hurt my daughter. But another part of me couldn't imagine putting Sophie through a trial. She was already having nightmares and barely sleeping. Making her testify about being locked in that closet seemed cruel. My therapist helped me work through it. She reminded me that the restraining order meant Lindsay could never come near Sophie again. She said sometimes protecting your child meant choosing the option that caused them the least additional trauma. I called Lisa and told her I would accept the plea deal. Lisa said she would let the prosecutor know. The plea hearing happened on a Thursday morning. I sat in the courtroom with Lisa while Lindsay stood in front of the judge. She wore a gray suit and had her hair pulled back. Her lawyer stood next to her looking nervous. The judge asked if she understood she was pleading guilty to criminal confinement and child endangerment. Lindsay said yes in a quiet voice. Then she read a prepared statement her lawyer had obviously written. She said she never meant to hurt Sophie and she was sorry for what happened. She claimed she made a terrible mistake and wanted to take responsibility for her actions. The words sounded empty and rehearsed like she was reading lines in a play. The judge accepted the plea but added 200 hours of community service working with child safety organizations. He said Lindsay needed to understand the gravity of traumatizing a 5-year-old child. He told her if she violated the restraining order or failed to complete her anger management classes, she would go directly to jail. Lindsay nodded and her lawyer thanked the judge. The company settled with me 6 weeks later. Lisa negotiated the whole thing without me having to do much. They agreed to pay for all of Sophie's therapy sessions for as long as she needed them. They covered Lisa's legal fees and gave me compensation for the 3 years of hostile work environment I endured. The amount was significant enough that I could have quit and lived comfortably for a year while finding a new job. Lisa also got them to provide a strong reference letter and agree not to contest unemployment if I decided to leave. She said it was one of the best settlements she had seen for a case like this. The company clearly wanted to avoid a lawsuit and bad publicity. I decided to stay with the company. I actually liked my job and my clients. The work was interesting and challenging in ways that made me feel accomplished. The new management team seemed genuinely committed to changing the culture. They promoted me to senior account manager with a 20% raise. They moved me to a different floor with a new team that was welcoming and professional. My new manager checked in regularly to make sure I had everything I needed. She never questioned when I left at 5 to get Sophie from daycare. She told me on my first day that she had 2 kids of her own and understood that being a good parent made you a better employee. The team had 3 other working mothers who immediately invited me to lunch. They told me they were glad I stayed and that what happened to me should never happen to anyone. Sophie's therapy sessions happened every Tuesday afternoon. The doctor's office had a playroom where Sophie could work through her feelings using toys and art supplies. After 3 months, the nightmares started happening less often. Some weeks she slept through the night without waking up scared. She began talking about what happened in simple terms that showed she was processing it. She told me the mean lady made a bad choice and couldn't hurt her anymore because she wasn't allowed to come near us. Her doctor said this was good progress and showed Sophie was developing healthy coping skills. She still slept in my bed most nights, but she was starting to spend time in her own room during the day. She played with her toys there and sometimes took naps in her bed. The doctor said we should let her move at her own pace and not rush her back to sleeping alone. 6 months passed and I landed 2 major clients for the company. The first was a tech startup that needed a complete rebrand. I pitched them a strategy that focused on their product benefits instead of just features. They signed a 6-month contract worth more than any account our team had brought in that quarter. The second client was a healthcare company expanding into new markets. I developed their campaign strategy, and they were so impressed they extended the contract for another year. My new manager called me into her office after the healthcare deal closed. She told me I was doing amazing work, and the client specifically requested to work with me on future projects. She asked if I needed anything to make my job easier. I mentioned that sometimes I had to leave right at 5 for daycare pickup and felt bad about it. She looked confused and said leaving at 5 was normal. She told me she had 2 kids and always left by 5:30 herself. She said being a good parent made you better at time management and prioritizing tasks. The other people on my new team were great. 3 of them were working mothers who invited me to lunch during my first week. They shared tips about managing work and kids. One woman brought her daughter to the office sometimes when school was closed and nobody cared. Another had photos of her kids all over her desk and talked about them proudly during meetings. Nobody ever made comments about my parenting or questioned my commitment. When I had to leave for Sophie's school events, my manager just asked me to update my calendar. The team actually celebrated when I told them about landing the tech startup account. They took me out for drinks after work and toasted to my success. Then everything changed again on a Tuesday morning. Sophie's daycare director called me at 9:30. Her voice sounded tight and worried. She said Lindsay had shown up at the daycare asking to see Sophie. The staff recognized her immediately from the photos I had given them when the restraining order was issued. They told Lindsay she needed to leave or they would call the police. Lindsay started crying and said she just wanted to apologize to Sophie for what happened. She said she had been going to therapy and realized how much she had hurt us. The director told her that didn't matter because there was a legal order keeping her away from both of us. Lindsay refused to leave the parking lot. She sat in her car watching the playground where the kids were playing outside. The director called the police and kept all the children inside until officers arrived. 2 patrol cars showed up within 10 minutes. Lindsay was still sitting in her car when they approached her. She got out and tried to explain that she just wanted to make things right. The officers checked the restraining order in their system and told her she was under arrest for violating it. She started sobbing and saying this wasn't fair. They handcuffed her and put her in the back of the patrol car. The director called me after Lindsay was taken away and assured me Sophie never saw her. She said the staff handled everything perfectly, and Sophie was safe inside playing with blocks the whole time. I got a call from the prosecutor's office that afternoon. He told me Lindsay had violated a court order and would face serious consequences. He said the judge took restraining order violations very seriously, especially when children were involved. Lindsay's hearing was scheduled for the next week. The prosecutor said he would push for jail time since she had deliberately gone to my daughter's daycare, despite knowing she was legally forbidden from coming near us. He asked if I wanted to provide a victim impact statement. I said yes. At the hearing, Lindsay stood before the judge looking terrible. Her hair was messy and she had dark circles under her eyes. Her lawyer tried to argue that she was genuinely remorseful and just wanted closure. The judge cut him off and said the restraining order existed for a reason. He said Lindsay had already traumatized a child, and now she was continuing to harass the family. He sentenced her to 60 days in jail. Lindsay started crying and her lawyer asked for probation instead. The judge said no. He said maybe 60 days would teach her that court orders were not suggestions. The bailiff led her away still crying. I felt relieved watching her go. She had finally faced real consequences for her actions. The company reached out to me a month later about developing new workplace policies. They wanted my input on preventing harassment and creating a better environment for working parents. I met with the head of HR and 2 executives. They asked me to describe everything that had happened with Lindsay and what warning signs were missed. I told them about the 3 years of comments and how my complaints were dismissed. I explained how Aaron had actually praised Lindsay for tracking my parenting-related absences. They looked uncomfortable hearing all of this laid out. The HR director said they wanted to make sure nothing like this ever happened again. They asked if I would help write new policies around harassment reporting and family-friendly scheduling. They also wanted me to train managers on recognizing subtle discrimination patterns. I agreed because I didn't want any other parent to go through what I had experienced. We spent weeks developing the new policies. They included mandatory harassment training for all employees. Managers had to document any complaints immediately, and HR would investigate within 48 hours. The company also implemented flexible scheduling options for parents and stopped scheduling important meetings after 4:30. They created a clear process for reporting discrimination with multiple channels so people didn't have to go through their direct manager. I led the first training session for managers, and it felt good helping create real change. A year after everything happened, Sophie started kindergarten. She walked into her classroom confidently on the first day and barely looked back at me. Her teacher said she was doing great and made friends easily. The nightmares had stopped months ago. She slept in her own bed now and talked about the closet incident like it was something that happened a long time ago to someone else. Her therapist said she had processed the trauma in a healthy way and didn't need regular sessions anymore. At work, I was considered for a director-level position. My manager nominated me and said my client work and policy development made me a strong candidate. The interview process would start next month. Sophie and I had a routine that worked. I picked her up from the school at 3 and we spent afternoons together doing homework and playing. Some evenings we went to the park or got ice cream. Weekends were for adventures like the zoo or children's museum. I had learned that protecting her and standing up for myself was the most important thing I could have done. Our life was genuinely better than it had been before Lindsay joined our team. Sophie was happy and confident. I had a job I loved with people who respected me. Everything had worked out better than I could have imagined back when I was enduring Lindsay's daily harassment. Standing up for myself and my daughter had changed both of our lives for the better. So yeah, that happened. I don't even know how we got here, but thanks for sticking around. This honestly feels more like a late-night chat than a video.
What are you thinking? My son asked carefully. I want to face her, Sydney said. I want to go to that prison, look her in the eye, and tell her she lost. Tell her she has no power anymore, that I'm done being afraid. Morrison advised against it, said giving Patricia what she wanted, contact, attention, would only encourage her. Sydney didn't care. I'm not doing it for her, Sydney explained. I'm doing it for me. I need to see her, see what she's become, see that she's just a woman in a cell, nothing more, nothing less. The monster in my head is scarier than the reality. I need to face the reality. Against everyone's advice, Sydney arranged a visit, went through all the official channels, got approved, set a date for 3 weeks after Bennett was born. My son wanted to go with her. Sydney refused. This was something she needed to do alone, but she agreed to let Morrison accompany her to the prison, wait in the parking lot, be there when she came out. The night before the visit, Sydney came to our house, left Bennett with us, sat at our kitchen table looking more determined than scared. Thank you, she said, for everything, for being the parents I needed, for loving me like a daughter, for giving me a safe place to land. Always, I told her. No matter what happens tomorrow, you always have us. She nodded, looked at Bennett sleeping in my wife's arms. If something happens to me, nothing will happen, my wife interrupted. But if it does, Sydney continued, promise me you'll tell Bennett about my dad, about Bennett Walsh, about how he loved me, how he protected me, how he was everything a father should be. Don't let her only legacy be her grandmother's evil. Make sure she knows she came from love, too. We promised. Sydney left that night with her jaw set, ready to face her past, ready to end it once and for all. She called me the next morning for Morrison's car. We're pulling up to the prison. I'm going in. Be strong, I told her. Remember why you're doing this. I will, Sydney said. I love you, Dad. I love you too, sweetheart. She hung up. I sat in my kitchen, waiting, praying, hoping this would bring her the closure she needed. Update 3. Sydney walked through the prison doors at 9:30 a.m. Security checked her, patted her down, took her phone, led her through a series of locked doors, each one clanging shut behind her. The visitation room was exactly what she expected. Gray walls, scratched plastic tables, guards stationed at regular intervals. She sat down at the assigned table, waited. Patricia Walsh entered 5 minutes later, shackles on her wrists and ankles, orange jumpsuit, hair grayer than Sydney remembered, face harder, but the eyes were the same, cold and calculating. They sat across from each other. Neither spoke at first. Patricia smiled slowly. Sydney, you look well. Motherhood suits you. Sydney kept her expression neutral. How did you know about the baby? I have friends, people on the outside who keep me informed. I like to know what my daughter is up to. I'm not your daughter, Sydney said flatly. I stopped being your daughter the day you murdered my father. Patricia's smile didn't waver. Such harsh words. The jury believed that story. Doesn't make it true. There's video evidence, audio recordings, your own voice planning it. Evidence can be manipulated. Your father was always good with technology. Who knows what he edited together? Sydney leaned forward. I came here to tell you something, and then I'm never coming back. You're going to stop contacting me. Stop sending packages. Stop having your friends harass me online. Stop everything. Patricia laughed. Or what? You'll report me? I'm in prison, dear. They can't do much more to me. Or I'll go to every media outlet that covered your trial, Sydney said calmly. I'll tell them about the harassment, the letters, the packages, the threats against my infant daughter. I'll make you famous again. Patricia Walsh, the mother who killed her husband and is now stalking her own daughter and grandchild from prison. They'll run that story for weeks. Patricia's smile faltered slightly. You wouldn't. Try me, Sydney said. I've stayed quiet for 3 years, kept to myself, let you rot here in obscurity. But if you can't leave me alone, if you can't let me live in peace, then I'll make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of person you are. I'll do interviews, write a book, whatever it takes to make your life here as miserable as possible. You're bluffing. Am I? Sydney pulled out a paper from her pocket, unfolded it. I've already been contacted by 3 publishers interested in my story, 2 documentary filmmakers, 4 podcasts. I've said no to all of them, but I have their contact information. I could have deals signed by next week. Patricia's jaw clenched. That would require you to relive everything, to talk about that day, to expose your pain publicly. I've made peace with my pain, Sydney said. I've done the therapy, the work. I'm not afraid to talk about what you did anymore. The question is, are you ready for everyone here to know? The other inmates? The guards? People in prison don't like child killers. They especially don't like people who murdered their partners. I wonder how safe you'll be once your story goes viral again. Patricia leaned back. For the first time, she looked uncertain. You've thought this through. I've had 3 years to think. 3 years of you trying to maintain control, trying to keep your hooks in me. It ends today. You have 2 choices. Leave me and my family alone completely. No more letters, packages, or contact attempts through any channels. Or I go public with everything. Every detail. Every piece of harassment. Every threat. Your choice. They stared at each other across the table. Finally, Patricia spoke. And if I agree to leave you alone, you'll do what? I'll live my life. You'll live yours. Behind bars where you belong. We'll never speak again. You'll become nothing to me. A footnote. A cautionary tale I might tell Bennett someday about why you choose your partner carefully. Patricia's eyes flickered at Bennett's name. You named her after him? Yes, Sydney said simply. And she'll grow up knowing what kind of man her grandfather was. How he loved and protected his daughter. How he sacrificed everything to keep her safe. That's the legacy that matters, not yours. Patricia was quiet for a long moment. You've become hard. I've become strong, Sydney corrected. There's a difference. Now give me your answer. Leave us alone or deal with the consequences. Patricia looked around the visitation room. At the guards. The other inmates visiting with their families. At the gray walls that would be her home until she died. When she looked back at Sydney, something had shifted in her face. Acceptance, maybe. Or defeat. Fine, she said. I'll stop. No more contact. No more contact through anyone, Sydney emphasized. No lawyers with fake estate matters. No ex-cellmates sending packages. No online harassment. Nothing. I understand. Sydney stood up. Good. If you break this agreement, if I get even one suspicious email, I'm going to every reporter I can find. Are we clear? Patricia nodded. We're clear. Sydney walked toward the exit. Didn't look back. The guard led her through the locked door. Then another. Then another. Each one taking her further from Patricia. Further from that chapter of her life. Morrison was waiting in the parking lot, leaning against his car. He straightened up when Sydney emerged. How'd it go? He asked. Sydney took a deep breath of free air. It's done. Really done. They drove back in comfortable silence. Morrison didn't push for details. Just let Sydney process. When they got to our house, Sydney practically ran to the door. My wife met her with Bennett. Sydney took her daughter and held her close. Buried her face in Bennett's tiny head and just breathed. It's over, she said. I looked her in the eye and ended it. Over the next few months, nothing happened. No packages, no emails, no harassment. Patricia Walsh kept her word. Sydney's life became peaceful in a way it hadn't been since her father died. She went back to work part-time, brought Bennett to visit us twice a week. My wife would babysit while Sydney did therapy sessions with clients. Bennett became the center of all our lives. Sydney was good at motherhood, patient and attentive, but she also set boundaries, didn't hover, let Bennett explore and make small mistakes. She was determined to raise her daughter differently than she'd been raised, with security and love, but also truth. On Bennett's first birthday, Sydney threw a small party in our backyard. Same spot as the wedding, same group of people, Kelly and a few other friends, my extended family, about 20 people total. Bennett sat in her high chair smashing cake into her face. Everyone laughed and took photos. It was perfectly ordinary, perfectly happy. Sydney pulled me aside at one point. I want to thank you again for everything this year, for being here, for being the dad I needed while I figured out how to be a mom. You've been a great mom from day one, I told her. I'm trying, Sydney said. Some days are easier than others. I worry sometimes that I'm going to mess her up, pass on my trauma, make her afraid of the world. You won't, I said firmly. You know what real love looks like because your father showed you. You know what protection means because he protected you. Bennett has that same foundation now. You've given her that. Sydney smiled. My dad would have loved her so much. He does, I said. Wherever he is, he sees her. He sees how amazing you've become, how you survived and healed and built this beautiful life. Sydney's eyes filled with tears. Happy ones. I wish he could meet you. You would have been friends. I think so too. That night, after everyone left, Sydney helped us clean up. Bennett had fallen asleep in her car seat. My son carried her to the car carefully. Sydney lingered at our front door. This feels like a full circle moment somehow. Bennett's first birthday in the same place we got married. The same place I learned to trust that good parents exist. You'll have many more moments like this, my wife said. Many more birthdays and celebrations. This is just the beginning. Sydney hugged us both. I know, and I'm not afraid anymore. I used to think my mother would always cast this shadow, that I'd never escape her, but I did. And Bennett will grow up never knowing that shadow. She'll just know love and safety and family. That's the best revenge, I said. Living well, being happy, raising your daughter in light instead of darkness. Sydney nodded. My father would have said the same thing. They left that night. Sydney buckled Bennett into her car seat, kissed her sleeping head, got in the passenger seat next to my son. They waved as they pulled away. I stood in my driveway, same spot where 3 years ago Sydney had collapsed, sobbing. Same spot where I'd accidentally triggered her trauma by calling her daughter. But everything was different now. Sydney wasn't broken anymore, wasn't running, wasn't hiding. She'd faced her past, confronted her mother, set boundaries, and now she was free. I found out why no one will mess with my mom. My mom's this 4'11" woman who works at a library and knits scarves for charity, but I've watched grown men literally back away from her at grocery stores and cross streets when they see her coming. I found out why last week, and it's absolutely terrifying. When I was 8 years old, some punk teenager kept breaking into cars in our neighborhood, hit everyone's car multiple times over several months, stealing whatever he could find. Phones, wallets, loose change, anything valuable left visible. This kid was relentless. Didn't care about security cameras or motion lights. Just kept coming back night after night like some kind of criminal ghost. One night around midnight, he smashes my mom's passenger window with a crowbar and steals her entire purse. Inside was $800 in cash, our rent money that she had just withdrawn from the bank. Also, her credit cards, driver's license, house keys, work badge, everything important. We called the police immediately and filed a report. The cops were sympathetic, but said there was nothing they could realistically do. No cameras caught his face. No witnesses saw the break-in. No fingerprints on the glass, just another case number. My mom just nodded politely and thanked the officers for their time. She seemed unusually calm about losing $800. 3 days later, she's spending every afternoon at the library after work researching on computers for hours, printing out pages of documents, making dozens of phone calls, taking detailed notes in that tiny, precise handwriting. Turns out she'd figured out who the kid was from security footage at a nearby gas station, cross-referenced timestamps, tracked his route backwards, found his social media from a partial license plate reflection, found his address, school schedule, friends, family members, job, everything about his entire life. But here's where it gets absolutely insane. During her investigation, she discovered his mom was having a full-blown affair with their neighbor, 3 houses down, hotel meetings twice a week, romantic weekend trips, secret calls, the whole betrayal package. My mom spent 2 weeks documenting everything like building a legal case. Screenshots, printed emails, credit card statements, photos, meeting times, locations, more thorough than any private investigator. Then, she anonymously mailed detailed evidence packages to his dad, his mom's workplace supervisor, grandparents, their church pastor, and half their congregation. She also sent copies to the affair partner's wife, their teenage children, their employers, and homeowners association. Both families imploded within 72 hours. Parents screaming in driveways at 2 a.m., police showing up for domestic disputes. Moving trucks the next week, mom lost her job, dad filed for divorce. Affair partner's family fell apart. They had to move across town in complete shame. The break-in stopped that exact day. Here's how everyone in our neighborhood found out what she did. The kid's dad was so grateful to whoever exposed his cheating wife that he went door to door asking if anyone knew who sent the evidence packages. He wanted to thank them personally. When he got to our house, my mom answered in her floral apron, looking harmless as always. He explained the whole situation, thinking she was just another neighbor who might have information. My mom listened sympathetically, making concerned noises at all the right moments. Then she said sweetly, "I'm so sorry that happened, but I'm glad you found out the truth before wasting more years." Something about how she phrased that made him pause and look at her carefully. After an awkward silence, he asked, "Wait, was it you who sent those?" My mom's smile didn't change. She just said, "Your son broke into my car and stole my rent money." I told him through his bedroom window that actions have consequences. The dad stood there in complete shock, staring at this tiny woman who just admitted to destroying his entire family with research skills and stamps. By the next day, he told everyone on our block exactly what my librarian mom was capable of doing. Turns out my mom made a mistake. The evidence she gathered about the affair was accurate, but she had identified the wrong teenager as the thief. The real car burglar was his older cousin who borrowed his crowbar. The kid's family got destroyed, his parents divorced, his life ruined, all because my mom was so certain she had the right person. She didn't find out the truth until last year when the actual thief got arrested for a different crime and confessed to our break-in too. The wrongly accused kid, now 22, spent years in therapy, dropped out of school, struggled with depression from watching his world collapse. My mom tried to apologize, sent letters, offered money, anything. He never responded, until yesterday when he finally sent one message back. Tonight, you'll understand exactly how I felt. I stared at my phone screen for a solid 3 minutes after reading those words. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped the phone twice. Mom was in the kitchen making her usual Tuesday night dinner, humming along to some oldies station on the radio, completely unaware that her past had just shown up in my text messages. The sender was listed as Jasper Holbrook. I remembered that name. He'd been the quiet kid 2 streets over, the one whose family had the massive blow-up that summer when I was 8. The one whose mom had moved out in the middle of the night, whose dad started drinking heavily, whose little sister had to switch schools because of the bullying. The one my mom had systematically destroyed while trying to get our $800 back. I should have told her immediately. That's what a good son would do. Warn his mother that the person she'd wronged was planning something for tonight. But I didn't. I sat there at the kitchen table, phone clutched in my sweaty palm, watching her chop vegetables for stir-fry, and I didn't say a word. Maybe I wanted to see what would happen. Maybe after years of watching people literally cross the street to avoid my mom, I was curious what someone who'd lost everything because of her would actually do. Or maybe, deep down, I thought she deserved whatever was coming. "Levi, you want extra peppers?" Mom called over her shoulder. "Sure," I managed to say, my voice sounding weird and tight. She glanced back at me with those sharp brown eyes that missed nothing. "You okay? You look pale." "Just tired from work." The lie came out easily. I'd gotten good at lying to her over the years. When you grow up with a mom who can track down anyone's deepest secrets with a library card and internet access, you learn to keep things close to the chest. She nodded and went back to cooking. I watched her move around the kitchen with practiced efficiency. This tiny woman who'd taught me to read, who'd sat through every parent-teacher conference, who'd worked double shifts at the library when money was tight so I could have new shoes for school. The same woman who'd demolished 2 families because she was convinced she had the right person. The actual thief, Jasper's cousin Trent, had been arrested 8 months ago for breaking into a pharmacy. During questioning, he'd confessed to dozens of break-ins over the years, including ours. The cops had called my mom to let her know they'd finally caught the person who'd stolen her purse all those years ago. She'd gone quiet on the phone, asked them to repeat the name, then asked where the suspect lived at the time of our break-in. When they said it was Trent Holbrook, Jasper's older cousin who'd been staying with them that summer, I watched all the color drain from her face. For 3 days after that call, she didn't speak, just sat in her chair by the window, staring out at nothing. On the 4th day, she started writing letters, apology letters, to Jasper, to his dad, to his sister. She sent money, thousands of dollars from her retirement savings, tried calling, sent emails. Everything got returned or went unanswered. "They have every right to hate me," she'd said one night, her voice hollow. "I ruined that boy's life over a mistake," but that didn't stop her from being the same person. Just last month, our neighbor's teenager had been playing music too loud late at night. Instead of just asking them to turn it down like a normal person, Mom had researched the local noise ordinances, documented every violation with timestamps, and filed formal complaints with the HOA. The family got fined $500 and the kid's car got towed for parking violations Mom had also documented. The fear never went away. If anything, people were more careful around her now, knowing that she destroyed a family by accident. If she could do that much damage while being wrong, what could she do when she was right? My phone buzzed again. Another message from Jasper. "Your mom home?" My thumb hovered over the keyboard. I could warn her. I could call the police. I could do a dozen things to prevent whatever was about to happen. I typed back, "Yes. Good. I'll be there at 8. It was 7:32. 28 minutes until whatever Jasper had planned. Mom plated the stir-fry and set it down at the table. We ate in silence for a while. Just the sound of forks against plates and the radio playing something by the Beatles. "You're quiet tonight," she finally said. "Long day." She studied me across the table. "You've been acting strange for a few days now. Something you want to talk about?" "Everything," I wanted to say. "I want to talk about how you destroyed a kid's family because you were so certain you were right. How you've never met a problem you couldn't solve by digging up dirt on someone. How people are terrified of you and you don't seem to care. How I'm terrified of you sometimes." "Nope," I said instead. "Just work stuff." She didn't believe me. I could tell by the way her eyes narrowed slightly. But she let it drop, went back to eating. The clock on the microwave ticked over to 7:45. I'd seen Jasper around town occasionally over the years. He'd dropped out of high school after his family fell apart, started working at a warehouse, moved into a cheap apartment on the edge of town. Last I'd heard, he was taking night classes at community college, trying to piece his life back together. He'd lost weight, had dark circles under his eyes, looked 10 years older than his actual age. All because my mom had made a mistake. At 7:52, I heard a car pull up outside. My heart started hammering. Mom heard it too, looked toward the front window with mild curiosity. She wasn't expecting anyone, hadn't ordered anything. This was unusual. The doorbell rang at exactly 8 p.m. Mom wiped her mouth with a napkin, stood up, smoothed down her cardigan. Wonder who that could be. I followed her to the door, my legs feeling shaky. Through the window next to the door, I could see Jasper standing on our porch. He was wearing a dark jacket, hands in his pockets, face expressionless. He looked calm, too calm. Mom opened the door. For a second, she didn't recognize him. Then I saw the recognition hit her face like a physical blow. Her hand tightened on the doorknob. "Jasper," she said quietly. "Mrs. Brennan." His voice was flat, emotionless. "Can I come in?" Every instinct screamed at me to say no, to shut the door, to call the police. But Mom, to my complete shock, stepped aside and held the door open wider. Of course. Jasper walked into our house, into our living room where he stood awkwardly near the couch. He looked around, taking in the normal, boring details of our life. The knitted throws on the couch, the family photos on the wall, the bookshelf crammed with library sale finds. His eyes lingered on a photo of me at my high school graduation, Mom's arm around my shoulders, both of us smiling. "You have a nice home," he said finally. "Thank you." Mom's voice was steady, but I could see her hands trembling slightly. She clasped them together. "Jasper, I know there's nothing I can say that will fix what I did to you and your family. I've tried to apologize, tried to make it right, but I understand if you can't forgive me. If you're here to tell me how much you hate me, I'll listen. You deserve that much." He laughed. It was a sharp, bitter sound that made my skin crawl. "You think I'm here for an apology? I don't know why you're here. Your text said I'd understand how you felt," I blurted out. "Tonight. You said tonight I'd understand how you felt." Jasper turned to look at me, and I saw something in his eyes that made my blood run cold. Not anger exactly. Something colder than that. Something broken. "You're Levi, right? I remember you. You were just a kid when it all went down." I nodded, not trusting my voice. "I wanted your mom to feel what it's like," Jasper continued, turning back to her. "To have your whole world fall apart because of someone else's actions. To lose everything. To watch people you love suffer because of a mistake you didn't even make." Mom stood perfectly still, barely breathing. "What are you going to do?" "Nothing." The word hung in the air. We both stared at him. "Nothing?" Mom repeated. "I'm not here to hurt you, Mrs. Brennan. I'm here to tell you what you did to me, so you can understand exactly what your research skills cost." He sat down on our couch without being invited, and I noticed his hands were shaking. My parents got divorced. Dad blamed Mom for the affair, but Mom blamed Dad for never being around enough. At Christmas dinner, my dad said, "You're a burden. You can't live with us anymore." When I packed up and told them I'd stop paying the bills, my dad, at first, I thought I misheard. My mom gave this nervous laugh like maybe he was joking, but he just sat there staring at me, waiting for my reaction. The room went silent. My sister Hannah froze, her fork halfway to her mouth. She looked at me with wide eyes like she couldn't believe what she just heard. I swallowed the piece of ham I was chewing and put my fork down. "What?" "You heard me," he said. "You're no longer welcome here. You need to move out." I just sat there trying to process. I'm 23, have a steady job, could have moved out years ago, but I stayed because they needed me. I paid the electric bill, the internet, groceries most weeks, things they couldn't afford because my dad had been unemployed for years and my mom only worked part-time. I wasn't a burden. I was the reason the lights were still on in that house. And now, out of nowhere, I was being kicked out like some useless freeloader. Mom finally spoke up. "Maybe we should talk about this later." But Dad interrupted. "No, this is my house. I make the rules and I say he's done here." Hannah put down her fork. She was only 16, and I could tell she was scared. She stared at our parents like she didn't even recognize them. If they could throw me out so easily, what did that mean for her? I took a deep breath. I wasn't going to argue or beg. If they wanted me out, fine. But they weren't ready for what that really meant. I leaned back in my chair. "All right," I said. My dad sat up straighter like he'd won some imaginary battle. My mom still looked uncomfortable, but she didn't say anything. Maybe she was in shock, or maybe she just didn't care as much as I thought. I stood up, grabbed my plate, and carried it to the sink. I didn't want to give them the reaction they wanted. Instead, I looked at Hannah, who was still sitting there, tense and confused. I gave her a small nod. She was the only one at that table I still cared about. Dad took a sip of his drink like nothing had happened. Mom went back to picking at her mashed potatoes. Hannah kept looking at me like she wanted to say something, but she didn't. I didn't stay to finish dinner, just walked out. I went straight to my room, closed the door, and started packing. I wasn't going to waste time trying to understand why they were doing this. If they wanted me gone, I was gone. But that also meant they'd lose everything I'd been paying for. and I wasn't going to warn them. I packed in silence, but I could hear them talking downstairs. My mom's voice was low and scared. My dad's was firm, like he was trying to convince her of something. I caught bits and pieces. He's old enough. We can handle it. He should have moved out years ago. An hour later, there was a knock on my door. I opened it and Hannah slipped inside, quickly shutting the door behind her. Her eyes were red and puffy. She'd been crying. "Are you really leaving?" she whispered. "Yeah," I said. "I don't have much choice. Can I come with you?" That broke my heart. "You're 16. They'd call the cops, but the second you turn 18, my door's open." She hugged me tight. "I hate them for this." "Don't," I said. "Just remember who was here for you." I left that night. Didn't say goodbye to them. Just grabbed my stuff and drove to a friend's place. 3 days later, my phone exploded. "Mom, the power company is threatening to shut us off. Can you call them?" "Dad, you need to pay your share of the bills." I stared at the messages for a long time. Then I texted back. "I don't live there anymore, remember?" And I blocked them both. 2 weeks later, Hannah called from a friend's phone. Her voice was shaky. "The internet's gone. The power was off for 2 days until Mom borrowed money from Grandma. They can't afford groceries. Dad's fighting with Mom, constantly blaming her for everything. I'm sorry you have to deal with this," I said. She was quiet for a moment. Then she whispered, "I found papers in Dad's room. Legal documents with your name on them." "What kind of documents?" "Something about Grandpa's inheritance. The one he left you before he died. My grandfather had passed 2 years ago. I knew he'd left me something, but Dad said it was tied up in legal issues and I'd get it eventually. I'd trusted him to handle it." "Hannah, what did the papers say?" Her voice cracked. "Dad forged your signature. He transferred everything into his name 6 months ago, over $80,000. That's why he kicked you out now, so you wouldn't find out." The room started spinning. My own father had stolen from me, then thrown me out to cover his tracks. I took pictures of everything, but he just came into my room and I heard a crash, Hannah screaming, and then my dad's voice yelling something I couldn't make out. The line went dead. I tried calling back immediately. Nothing. Tried 3 more times, straight to voicemail. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely hold my phone. I grabbed my keys and drove straight to the house, doing 85 inches of 55 zone. Didn't care if I got pulled over. When I got there 40 minutes later, all the lights were off except Hannah's bedroom window. I pounded on the front door. No answer. I went around back and tried that door. Locked. I could hear yelling inside but couldn't make out the words. I used the key I still had. Yeah, I never gave it back. The house was dark except for the glow from upstairs. I took the stairs 2 at a time and found Hannah's door closed. I could hear my dad on the other side, voice raised. "You had no right to go through my things. No right. You stole from him?" Hannah was crying. "You're a thief. That money was mine. Your grandfather promised it to me, not him. I just corrected a mistake." I opened the door without knocking. Hannah was backed into the corner of her room, phone smashed on the floor. My dad stood in the middle, face red, still in his stained work shirt he'd probably been wearing for 3 days. He turned when he heard me. For a second, something like fear crossed his face. Then it was gone, replaced by anger. "Get out of my house." "Not without Hannah." I kept my voice level. "She's my daughter. You have no say here. And that was my inheritance, the one you stole." Mom appeared in the doorway behind me, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. "Please, both of you, can we just talk about this calmly?" "There's nothing to talk about," I said, eyes still on my dad. "Hannah, get your things. You're coming with me." "She's not going anywhere." Dad stepped between us. "I'm calling the police then, right now, and I'm showing them the evidence of fraud Hannah photographed." That stopped him. His jaw worked like he was chewing something tough. "You wouldn't. Try me." Hannah moved fast. She grabbed a backpack from her closet and started shoving clothes into it. Mom made a weak sound of protest but didn't move to stop her. "This is kidnapping," Dad said. "No, this is me keeping my sister safe from someone who destroys phones and corners teenage girls in their rooms. That's called menacing, by the way. I looked it up on the drive over. I hadn't, but he didn't know that." Hannah zipped her bag and moved to my side. She was trembling. "Hannah, honey, please." Mom finally spoke. "We can work this out. Your father just got upset. He didn't mean. He smashed my phone because I found proof he's a criminal." Hannah's voice was stronger now. "I'm done." We left. Dad didn't try to stop us, just stood there breathing hard. Mom followed us down the stairs, pleading, but not actually saying anything that mattered. Just variations of please and we're family. In my car, Hannah started crying for real. Big, shaking sobs. I drove to a 24-hour diner and parked. Let her cry it out while I sat there trying to figure out what the hell I was supposed to do next. "I'm sorry," she finally said. "I shouldn't have looked through his stuff, but I was trying to find the checkbook because Mom asked me to, and I saw your name, and you have nothing to apologize for. He's the one who should be sorry. Do you really think he forged your signature?" "Yeah, I do." Grandpa specifically told me that money was for my future, for a house or business or whatever I needed. Dad always resented that. We sat in that parking lot until 2 a.m., talking through everything. I showed her my bank account on my phone. The $11,000 I'd saved up working overtime and living like a broke college student even though I had a decent job at a medical supply warehouse. "That's enough for both of us?" she asked. "For a little while. I'll figure it out." That night, we stayed at my friend's place. He and his girlfriend let Hannah take their couch while I crashed on the floor. The next morning, I called a lawyer, a guy named Jeffrey Ross who handled estates and fraud cases. His secretary said he could see me that afternoon. I brought the photos Hannah had taken, printed them out at a FedEx. Jeffrey was maybe 50, gray at the temples, office that smelled like old books and coffee. He looked at the documents for a long time. "This is pretty clear forgery," he said finally. "Your signature here and here, they're not even close to matching. Did your father have access to anything with your real signature? Old tax returns, maybe? I lived there until a few weeks ago. That would do it. People think forging a signature is hard, but if you have samples and a steady hand, it's easier than you'd think." He set the papers down. "Here's the situation. You can file a police report for fraud and identity theft. With this evidence, they'll likely investigate, but that means your father will be arrested and prosecuted." "Good. I need you to understand what you're signing up for. This will destroy whatever relationship remains with your parents. Your mother will likely have to testify. This becomes public record. Your family's financial situation gets examined. Are you prepared for that?" I thought about Christmas dinner, about living in that house for 23 years, paying their bills, being treated like I was worthless, about Hannah's smashed phone on her bedroom floor. "Yeah, I'm prepared." Jeffrey nodded. "Then let's do this right. I'll also file a civil suit to recover the funds. The criminal case will take time, but the civil one, we can move faster on that, especially with evidence this clear." I signed the paperwork, paid his retainer fee, $2,500 that made my stomach hurt, left his office feeling like I'd just stepped off a cliff. The police report was filed the next day. A detective named Morris took my statement, looked at the photos, asked a bunch of questions about my relationship with my father, whether there was a history of abuse. I told him the truth. Emotional and verbal, yeah. Physical, no. "We'll be in touch," Morris said. "This kind of case, financial fraud between family members, it takes time to build, but you've got good documentation. That helps." 2 days later, my dad was arrested at the house. Hannah heard about it from one of her friends whose mom was the neighborhood gossip. He made bail within 6 hours, posted by my mom using money borrowed from her sister. My phone started blowing up again, this time from extended family. Aunts, uncles, cousins I barely knew, all with the same basic message. "How could you do this to your father? Family doesn't call the cops on family. You're tearing everyone apart over money." I blocked them all. The only one I responded to was my Uncle Raymond, my mom's older brother. He'd always been decent to me. His message was different. "Your mom called crying. She says you had your dad arrested. I told her if he stole from you, he deserves whatever happens. But she's asking if we can talk. Just you and me. No pressure." We met at a coffee shop. Raymond was a big guy, ex-military, ran his own plumbing business. He ordered black coffee and got straight to it. "Did he really forge documents?" I showed him the photos on my phone. He looked at them for a long time. "Son of a bitch," he muttered. I knew he was having money problems, but I didn't think he'd go this far. He kicked me out so I wouldn't find out. Raymond rubbed his face. "Your mom's a mess. She's saying she didn't know anything about it. Do you believe her?" He was quiet. "Honestly, I don't know. She's my sister, but she's got this way of not seeing what she doesn't want to see. It's possible he kept her in the dark. It's also possible she knew and convinced herself it was okay somehow. Hannah's staying with me now." "Yeah, I heard. CPS been called yet?" That hit me like cold water. "What? Your parents still have custody of a minor. You took her without permission. I'm surprised they haven't reported it already. She left willingly. He destroyed her phone and cornered her in her room." "I believe you, but legally it's complicated. You might want to talk to your lawyer about that too." I called Jeffrey from the parking lot. He confirmed what Raymond said. Technically, what I done could be considered custodial interference, even though Hannah was 16 and came willingly. Best case scenario, your parents don't push it because they don't want more attention on their situation, Jeffrey said. Worst case, they report you and this gets messier. You might want to look into emergency custody or have Hannah file for emancipation. That weekend, I took Hannah to a family law attorney Jeffrey recommended. Her name was Victoria Chen. She explained that emancipation was possible but required proof Hannah could support herself financially. At 16, that was basically impossible. "The other option is filing for guardianship," Victoria said. "But your parents would have to consent or be proven unfit, given that there's already a criminal case involving your father and an incident of destroyed property and intimidation involving Hannah. We might have grounds." "How long does that take?" "Months, typically. In the meantime, I'd document everything. Keep Hannah in school, make sure her basic needs are met, maintain a stable home environment. If CPS does get involved, you want to show you're the better option. We left her office with more paperwork and another retainer fee. My savings were getting demolished, but I didn't see another choice. Monday morning, I got a call from Hannah's school. She'd been marked absent for 3 days, and they needed to know why. She's been dealing with a family emergency, I said. She'll be back tomorrow. And who am I speaking with? Her brother. She's staying with me temporarily. I see. We'll need documentation of guardianship to update our records and excuse the absences. Working on it. That night, Hannah admitted she was scared to go back to school. Half her friends' parents knew her parents. Small town, everybody talks. She didn't want to deal with questions or judgment. You can't hide forever, I told her. And you need to graduate. That's not optional. She went back Tuesday. Came home that afternoon looking exhausted. Everyone knows, she said. Dad was arrested. You filed charges. I'm living with you. The guidance counselor pulled me aside and asked if I was safe and if I needed to talk to someone. What did you tell her? That I'm safer now than I was. The criminal case moved slowly. Detective Morris kept me updated. They'd seized financial records from my dad's house. Found other irregularities. Apparently, my inheritance wasn't the only questionable thing he'd done. There were credit cards in my name I never opened. Small amounts, but enough to establish a pattern. He's been using your identity for about 3 years, Morris told me. Nothing huge. A card here, a loan there. But it adds up. We're building a stronger case than we initially thought. My dad hired a public defender. Couldn't afford a private attorney. The irony wasn't lost on me. That $80,000 he stole was already gone. Spent on what? I never found out. Probably paying off debts he'd racked up living beyond his means while unemployed. The preliminary hearing was set for 6 weeks out. Jeffrey said the civil case would move parallel to the criminal one, but we'd likely see results faster there. In the meantime, life got weird. I was 23, working full-time, and suddenly responsible for a teenager. Hannah needed school supplies, clothes that actually fit, food that wasn't ramen and frozen pizza. My friend and his girlfriend were cool about her staying on their couch, but it wasn't sustainable. I started apartment hunting. Found a 2-bedroom place that was barely affordable but would work. Paid first, last, and security deposit. Watched my savings drop to $3,000. Tried not to panic. We moved in on a Saturday. Hannah's entire life fit in 4 boxes and 2 trash bags. She cried when she saw her room. It was empty, except for an air mattress I'd bought and a lamp from Walmart, but it was hers. We'll get you real furniture, I promised. Just need a few more paychecks. This is more than enough, she said. That first week in the apartment was hard. Hannah had nightmares. I heard her crying through the thin walls at 2 a.m. but didn't know what to do. I'd never been responsible for another person like this. I started researching. Read articles about helping teens cope with trauma and family disruption. Learned I was supposed to maintain routines, provide stability, maybe look into therapy. All things that cost time and money I didn't have much of, but I tried. Made sure she had breakfast before school. Helped with homework I barely understood myself. Let her pick what we watched on Netflix, even though her taste in shows was terrible. She started opening up more. Told me about things I'd never known. How Dad would go into her room when he was angry and throw things around, not at her, but near her, to scare her. How Mom would make her lie to relatives about why they needed to borrow money. How they'd fight about me, about whether kicking me out was the right move, and Dad would always win. He said you were holding him back, Hannah told me one night. That once you were gone, he could finally get his life together without you draining the family resources. Did you believe that? No, I knew you were the only reason we had anything. The preliminary hearing came. I had to testify about my grandfather's will, my relationship with my dad, the discovery of the forged documents. My dad sat there in a cheap suit, looking smaller than I remembered, wouldn't make eye contact. His public defender argued that it was a misunderstanding, that my grandfather had verbally promised my dad the money, and my dad had just formalized what he believed were his father's true wishes. Jeffrey tore that apart, showed the will explicitly naming me, showed the forged signature that didn't match samples of my real signature, showed the timing, how the transfer happened right before my dad kicked me out. The judge bound it over for trial, set a date 4 months out. In the civil case, things moved faster. Jeffrey filed for summary judgment, basically asking the judge to rule without a trial because the facts were so clear. My dad's lawyer opposed it, but weakly. 2 months after I'd filed charges, I got a call from Jeffrey. We won the civil case. Judge ruled in your favor. Your father has to return the full amount plus interest and attorney fees. How's he supposed to do that? He doesn't have it. That's his problem. We can put a lien on the house, garnish wages once he gets a job. There are options. But legally, you've won. It felt hollow. I'd won, but I'd also lost my family. My mom hadn't spoken to me since Hannah left. Extended family still thought I was the villain. And I had a teenager depending on me when I was barely keeping my own head above water. The money started coming back in payments. Small amounts, $200 here, $300 there, garnished from Mom's part-time paycheck since Dad still hadn't found work. It would take years to get it all back this way. But then, something unexpected happened. The house sold. Apparently they couldn't keep up with the mortgage without my contributions, and Dad's legal fees had buried them. They sold for $180,000, paid off what they owed on the mortgage, and had about $40,000 left. Jeffrey moved fast. Got a court order to seize enough to cover what my dad owed me. I got a check for $82,347. The full amount plus interest and legal fees, all at once. I stared at that check for an hour before depositing it. It was more money than I'd ever seen. It was also everything my grandfather had wanted me to have, 2 years late, and only because I'd had to sue my own father for it. Hannah and I went furniture shopping that weekend. Got her a real bed, a desk, a dresser, got myself more than an air mattress, bought groceries without checking prices. It felt surreal. Grandpa would be happy you got it, Hannah said while we were building her desk. He always said you were the smart one, the one who'd do something with your life. I'm a warehouse worker living in a shitty apartment. You're 23 and you're taking care of me. You stood up to Dad when no one else would. That's something. The criminal trial was still coming. My dad took a plea deal a week before it was scheduled to start. Pled guilty to fraud and identity theft. Got 3 years probation, community service, and a permanent record. No jail time. The prosecutor said it was typical for first-time white-collar offenses with family victims. I was pissed, but there was nothing I could do about it. Mom called me after the sentencing. First time I'd heard her voice in 4 months. "Are you happy now?" she asked. "You've destroyed your father's life. He destroyed his own life when he stole from me. That money should have been his. Your grandfather never appreciated what your father did for him. Grandpa left it to me in his will, in writing, legal and clear. You could have handled this privately, within the family. Instead, you humiliated us publicly. He kicked me out to hide what he'd done. He cornered Hannah and smashed her phone. I handled it exactly how it needed to be handled." She was quiet for a moment. "I'm moving to Virginia to live with my sister. The house is sold. Your father's staying with a friend. I don't know what will happen to us. What about Hannah?" She made her choice. Then she hung up. Hannah took it hard. She'd been holding on to some hope that Mom would come around, would choose her. Now that hope was gone. "I don't understand how she can just leave," Hannah said. "I'm her daughter. Some people can't admit when they're wrong, so they double down and blame everyone else. Do you think she'll ever talk to us again? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not, but we're okay without them." 6 months after Christmas dinner, I sat down and looked at where things stood. I had about $65,000 in the bank after buying furniture, covering legal fees, and building an emergency fund. Hannah was doing okay in school, seeing a therapist once a week that insurance mostly covered. I'd gotten a promotion to shift supervisor at the warehouse. We weren't rich. We weren't even comfortable yet, but we were stable, and more importantly, we were free. Hannah turned 17 inches March. I took her to a nice restaurant. Nothing fancy, but nicer than Applebee's. She ordered steak and actually smiled, really smiled, for the first time in a while. "Thank you," she said, "for everything, for not leaving me there. You're my sister. That's what family actually means." A year after Christmas dinner, I got a Facebook message from my mom. Just 3 words. "How is Hannah?" I stared at it for a day before responding. "She's good. Honor roll. Thinking about colleges. She's safe and happy." Mom didn't respond. But 2 weeks later, a card came in the mail addressed to Hannah. No return address, but I recognized the handwriting. Inside was $100 and a note. "For your birthday. I'm sorry. Love, Mom." Hannah cried when she opened it. Then, she put it in her desk drawer and didn't talk about it. I didn't push her. Some wounds don't heal just because someone says sorry. These days, life is normal. Boring, even. Hannah's a senior now, applying to state schools. I'm still at the warehouse, but I've been putting money into a college fund for her. We have movie nights on Fridays. She complains about her teachers. I complain about my coworkers. We eat too much takeout and argue about whose turn it is to clean the bathroom. It's not the family I grew up with, but it's the family we built, and it's better than anything I had before. Sometimes I think about Christmas dinner, about that moment when my dad told me I was a burden and needed to leave. Part of me will always be hurt by that, but another part is grateful. Because if he hadn't kicked me out, I never would have found out what he'd done. I'd still be living in that house, paying their bills, being their backup plan. Instead, I'm here, free, with a sister who knows someone actually chose her. And maybe that's worth more than $80,000 or a relationship with parents who never really valued me anyway. Last month, Hannah asked if she could invite friends over. I said yes. They came over, ordered pizza, watched movies too loud. I heard them laughing through my bedroom door. One of her friends asked who I was, and Hannah said, "That's my brother. He's basically raised me for the past year and a half." "Cool," the friend said. "He seems nice." "He is," Hannah replied. "He's the best person I know." I stood in the hallway listening and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Pride. Not in myself, really. In us. In what we'd become despite everything. The inheritance my grandfather left me wasn't just money. It was a chance. A way out. A foundation to build something better. And yeah, I had to fight my own father in court to get it. Had to blow up what was left of my family. Had to learn how to be a guardian to a teenager when I was barely an adult myself. But I'd do it again. Every time. Because some things are worth fighting for. And sometimes, the family you make is better than the family you were born into. Update 2 months later. So, a lot has happened since my last update.